Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maximo and I'm here checking out Risk of Rain. Just for your information, the first time I played this game was something like 5 years ago. It was when it originally came out on Steam. I played it for about 10 minutes and I hated it, so I really wasn't looking forward to picking it up again this time. But, surprisingly enough, I'm actually enjoying it more than I thought I would, although I'm not still particularly thrilled with it. But I'll explain that as we go along. So we'll go down to the options first. You've got audio and video options. Now, what I really wish was here was the ability to turn down the amount of effects that can be on screen at any one time. Because while the game's performance is a rock solid 60 pretty much all the time, the effects that can pop up, especially towards the end of a game, is entirely too large. And considering the game's ultra zoom, well, not so much ultra zoomed out view, it's just really zoomed out view, and the amount of effects that can be on screen, it's hard to see what the bloody hell you're doing. So I wish there was an option for that, but unfortunately there's not. Controls I have to give a lot of praise for though, because these are completely rebindable. These aren't my default keys. These aren't the default keys. What happens when I press reset the default? As you can see, the default control scheme is actually entirely different. So it's actually quite neat that they've made it so that you can rebind pretty much any button to whatever you want. It's a really useful thing that you can do. But yeah, so having the ability to rebind your controls completely is kind of nice, because I'm having problems with my analog stick again. So being able to rebind it so it's just nothing but digital controls is actually really nice. If we go to the scores and unlockables, we can check our challenges and our characters. And these tell you how you can unlock items and how you can unlock characters. And there's a lot of different things you can do to unlock people. So yeah, as you can see, block lots of damage, stay in shield mode for 5 minutes straight, kill boss with lights out, with all the different characters and all that, and you've also got lots of items. You do have a stats screen here. As you can see, I've got about an hour and a half in the game so far, so that's about 90 minutes. So close enough, right? And you can see also your high scores on the right there. There's no, online leaderboard, which I kind of understand because it's a random game, but it kind of feels like a game that would benefit from it. And also I've got a nemesis, because that's probably what's killed me the most, because this game is actually quite hard. So yeah, I've played 3, 5, 7, 9 games with all the different characters that I've got unlocked so far. There's actually something like 10 or 12. There's a lot of them, and as you can see, I've got 20% game completion, but it's going to take me a lot longer to get to that 100%. You've got a monster log, and that just absolutely killed the captured frame rate. Like, look at the top, no valid data, it just killed it. But for that little frame you saw there, it lets you check out all the different monsters well, on a monster kill, a very small percentage chance you'll get the log for them. If I go to the item log, I expect the same thing to happen. No, it actually didn't. Alright, that's kind of neat. And you can see all the different items that you can get. There, it's all set up as like a shipping manifest, because the game's storyline is basically based around shipping all these things to people. It's kind of neat. And you've got a ton of different items. It's actually not that many in my point of view. Like, there is a fair amount of items, no doubt about that. It's just, I'm kind of spoiled by Binding of Isaac having something like 400 items. This is kind of a pittance, but at the same time, there is a lot of items. Like, we've got 25, 50, 75, yeah, we've got like 100 items here. There's a fair amount of stuff. Now, there is single player and online co-op, and I have tried to play the online co-op. You can join a room or host a room or just invite your friends to a private room, and I believe there's also ad hoc play. Yes, there is ad hoc play, so that's actually very nice. However, the one time I tried this, I got matched up with someone in, I think, the United States. I'm going to guess the game's region locked, but then again, finding someone who's playing this on Vita or possibly PS4 might be a bit of a pain in the ass. But the one time I did play, which I was going to show part of on screen now, the game's ping went up to about 200 something, and the game lagged to hell because of it. It ran fine, otherwise it was just having a really tough time keeping us in sync, because, you know, a fifth of a second is a long time. So if you're playing with someone in your own continent, it'll probably be fine. But if you're playing with someone off your continent, you're probably going to have a bad time. Also, I've noticed is that when the game disconnected, it had this weird thing where I ended up running around and controlling the other guy as well as myself. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but it was kind of funny. So I just put a little bit of footage of that up on the screen there, because that's actually kind of neat. But yeah, that's just what online co-op is. It'll probably be fine if you're playing with someone on your own continent. Otherwise, it's probably not worth doing. Or even someone in the same room as you, because, you know, ad hoc play, that's kind of neat. So if we start with the single player game, I've got 5 characters unlocked at the moment. You've got the loader and the handy, which, God, I just realized the pun. It takes me a really long time to notice the pun on these things. But yeah, as you can see, there's a ton more extra characters, and you're given details on how to unlock all of them. So, my personal favorite's got to be the Enforcer, but I won't be going as him straight away. I'll be going as the... Should I go as the Bandit, or should I go as the Commando? I'll go as the Commando. So, you've also got 3 different difficulty levels. I should just note that I'm not going to be playing as either of the melee classes. These guys are the melee classes, because I'm bad enough as this game as it is. I'm not going to be playing as melee. So, you've got 3 different difficulties. Haven't tried Monsoon, because on Rainstorm I can't even get off the first level. So, it's kind of great. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play on Rainstorm as the Commando class, and then I'll come back when I die, when I eventually die, and I'll play through Drizzle with the Enforcer, because I actually played Drizzle first, because, you know, considering I wasn't very good at this game to begin with, I decided to go for that straight away, and I actually got to the very end of the game. I was on the final boss, and I died on the final boss on Drizzle, so, and that was on the first try. Like, I hadn't even played the game for like 5 years. So, yeah, you can imagine that was a bit of a shock to me, honestly. Like, I thought the game was meant to be hard, but then I play on normal and it most certainly is. So, welcome to Risk of Rain. It's a 2D platformer. I hesitate to call it shooter, because it doesn't really feel like a shooter in the traditional sense, but, I mean, you've got guns and you shoot them, so if that makes it count as a shooter towards you, all the power to you. And it's mainly a platformer, but the emphasis really isn't on the platforming. The emphasis is indeed on the combat. So, every individual character has 4 different abilities, and the idea is to combine these 4 different abilities into something that works well enough for you to get by. Your main ability on the ability 1 button is your main attack, and it never has a cooldown, but every other attack that you have has a cooldown. So, this guy, for example, he has a shot that'll pierce through enemies. He also has a dodge roll, ow, that renders him completely invincible for the time being that he's in it. I just fell down a gigantic pit. And he's also got a machine gun blast, which will do lots of damage. And every character has a bunch of abilities like this. Like the Enforcer, my personal favorite, he has the ability to put his shield down and move really slowly and get faster attack and be invulnerable from the front. So if he gets in a corner and activates that, he's basically good. All the other characters have their own sort of abilities like that as well, and it's quite neat, and I'll linger over them next time I'm in the character select screen, which, trust me, that won't be very far away, but the main variety you're going to get in this game is playing as the multiple characters, because honestly, the game itself is actually quite repetitive. You end up going through the same levels over and over again. They are procedurally generated to a point, but they have generally the same layouts, because the game does like to make sure that you can't be screwed by a bad level layout, which is pretty good, but at the same time, you know, you tend to see the same type of levels over and over again, which is a little annoying. Yeah, that is the main variety of the game, though, trying to fight all the enemies with the different classes. Admittedly, the co-op would also be pretty good for extending the longevity as well, because this game is fucking rock hard on anything higher than Drizzle, so you do want to be on your toes at all times, and having a friend along for the ride is actually pretty good as well. You may have also noticed that there are items in the game. Which one am I going to buy? I'll buy the meat cube. I think this is the one I want. Yeah, that's pretty good, actually. So this game's got items as well. It's got both a usable item like Binding of Isaac and pretty much every roguelite ever, because this is basically a roguelite. And it's also got passive items, and they are displayed down in the bottom left and bottom right corners of the screen. And you can earn these in multiple ways. So you can go to a statue like this and be like, hey, give me some of your, I'll give you some money, you give me an item, deal? And sometimes they will and sometimes they won't. There are statues and there are treasure chests that are absolutely guaranteed to give you an item. So, you know, don't worry about that. Unfortunately, I just got a pretty useless item there because you gain gold in this game so slowly with this item that it really doesn't matter. Because, like, you can get 1,000 gold by fighting enemies on some of the later levels in a couple of minutes. So, with the rate that you gain gold with the fucking piggy bank, it's almost completely worthless. So yeah, passive items and active items. The active items are usually a lot more useful, but yeah, they have a cooldown as well. So you do need to be relatively careful of that. So yeah, now this is where I'm probably going to die because I'm kind of not well equipped for this fight. So the idea is, at the end of every level there's a teleporter, and to use the teleporter you need to survive for 90 seconds. You don't have to, well you do have to kill everything unfortunately, and I just died because, yeah, that's what I do. So yeah, that's Risk of Rain. It's bloody hard, but thankfully we can play single player with the Enforcer. But yeah, as you can see, they've got all sorts of different abilities. So like the Bandit can go invisible and they do a headshot that might reduce all their cooldowns. The Hand D has a drone that heals you, but you need to earn them, and you also get to use Overclock, which lets you punch faster, but his normal punches are really slow, which is kind of annoying because it makes him really hard in terms of survivability. And same deal with the Loader, but he punches a lot faster, but he's still pretty hard as well. So I'm going to go with the Enforcer. I love the Enforcer. He's actually pretty damn good. But anyway, here we go again. So yeah, that was a boss fight. So at the end of every level, there's a boss character that comes... There's a teleporter, I should say. And the teleporter, once you activate it, you have to survive for 90 seconds. Then you have to kill everything in the fucking room. That includes the boss monster. And the bosses can actually be really difficult if you aren't properly prepared. So the idea is, you want to go around the arena, the level, whatever you want to call it, and you want to prepare yourself by collecting lots of items and getting lots of money and experience. Because every time you level up, you get more health and you do more damage. It's pretty simple, really. The problem being that, and most of you have probably noticed this already if you aren't Risk of Rain players, is that counter up in the corner that slowly counts upwards. That is the difficulty. The game gets harder the more time you spend in it. So if you spend, say, 10 minutes in a level, you'll end up having to deal with harder enemies because they spawn all around you. And it gets worse and worse and worse as the game goes on. And it can be a fucking dick sometimes. Because Jesus Christ. Once that counter gets all the way up to the top, if you aren't fully prepared and fully ready to do whatever the bloody hell you need to do to survive, then you are screwed, mate. Because Jesus Christ, it can get hard at the higher difficulties. As I've said before, especially towards the end of the game where you've got a ton of items and they're all throwing out effects and all that, there's a ton of different enemies on screen and they can do tons of damage, it can get kind of ridiculous. I love the Enforcer, his shield bash is just amazing, but yeah. So the game gets harder as you go on, so that's kind of a pain in the neck. Alright, so do I get something? I get a little bit of experience. Do I get something now? I get a little bit more experience. Great. Really should save this money for actual treasure chests that are guaranteed to drop something for me. Kind of annoying, honestly. There are also, items... Huh. That's a bit weird. So either buy one guaranteed item. I think that lets me heal if I stand still for 2 seconds, which is actually quite useful. Or do I risk my money on something else? No, I think I'll go for the heal. The heal is actually pretty useful if you're willing to spend the time. Yep, bustling fungus. Trust the fungus. But yes. So, the game does get harder the longer it goes on, so it's really up to you to decide whether or not you want to stick around for longer and risk having the game be harder later on when you probably can't afford it to be harder in order to get better items, or go on with what you have and, you know, risk dying horribly because you're under-equipped. That's a very interesting balance that the game strikes, honestly. I actually quite like the idea of it. The downside being that the actual combat itself, after a couple of minutes on every character, isn't really particularly interesting. Eventually, you figure out the best strategies to use for every potential enemy, and it gets rather dull, honestly, especially since the game can go for a fairly long time. Like, the game that I played that got me to the very last stage of the game, the very last boss fight, lasted about 50 minutes, which is extraordinarily long. I mean, even most games of Binding of Isaac, unless you start getting really, really skilled, don't last that long. So it can get rather tiring to be playing through this game because all you've got is the same 4 abilities. Everything else is either a use item, which really doesn't have that much of a useful application, more than just its one use, or a bunch of passive items that activate randomly. That's really all there is to it, right? So it can get rather samey after a very short amount of time because of this. There's no upgradable abilities. There's no interesting customization of the characters that you've got. There's nothing along those lines, right? So it can get relatively dull relatively quickly. And I must say I'm not that big of a fan of it, and it would make me tire of this game rather fast. I imagine some people would get a real kick out of this. It reminds me a lot of World of Warcraft. Like World of Warcraft classes. Because the idea that you just have a bunch of abilities that you can't really change, and you have to just know when and where to use any one of these particular abilities. He keeps getting behind me. I hate this. The idea that you've got your abilities and you just need to know when to use them to be effective. I guess that's the main point I'm trying to make of this game. Some people might like that. I personally don't really care for it, honestly. It just seems a bit dull on the surface. I prefer games like Muramasa Rebirth over this because you have the ability to change your attacks and all that. I guess that whole thing is meant to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of ignored by the idea that you've got 12 character classes to play around with, so there is some variety in the game classes, but yeah, again, when the games are an hour long and you've only got the same 4 attacks to work with, it can get pretty dull pretty quickly. I did originally think that this game was more of a, just stand still and just spam all your abilities sort of game when I was first playing it, but I was definitely wrong about that, I'll tell you. There is some skill in recognizing when to use what particular ability, and doing it wrong might actually cost you your life. So, yes, I did just pick up a ukulele. Why did I just pick up a ukulele? Because don't ask any questions. I'm not going to claim to know why, but yeah. I'm not really that into it, honestly, if you couldn't tell. It's just, I just don't find it that personally that interesting, but it's a perfectly fine game. I don't really appreciate the zoomed out view of the camera either, because not only does it happen to be so far away, like, on the big screen, like, people who watch this on, who don't watch this on Vitas, who watch this on computers or something, might not understand what this problem is, but when you're playing this on a 5-inch screen, everything looks really zoomed out. It's kind of strange, honestly, to play this game when it feels so zoomed out. It feels like it should be zoomed in a bit more. I remember how on Epic would give you the option to have the entire room on screen or zoom in so that you could only see a part of the screen, but everything was rendered in higher resolution so you didn't have to worry about it. Did I see the teleporter before? I can't remember if I did. You've also got drones that you can pick up. There we go. They'll stick around until they get too damaged to help again, but you can repair them using more money. Mr. Zircon needs money. I don't... I've been playing a little bit of the Ratchet and Clank remake, so... Who knows, maybe I'll get a video done on that at some point. I've already been here, haven't I? Yeah, I think I've already... Oh no, here's the teleporter. Okay. The game's also got a fair few secrets as well, like getting to the final level, getting the key card and unlocking the secret door unlocks the robot janitor. And that's one of the goals to activate, to unlock one of the special characters. So yeah, there's plenty to do, like don't get me wrong. I guess it really just comes down to if you're capable of enjoying this sort of combat. If you are, you'll probably love this game because there's a lot to do and there's a lot of different character classes to play, so you'll have options and variety and all that, but if you're more into, like, actual heavy action games and not games that are focused around specific abilities, then you'll probably have more fun playing something else. I definitely don't... Like, I'm not going to say the game's bad, I'm just going to say it's not to my personal taste. Yay, I killed it. That was actually, like, that was actually a pretty easy fight, honestly, but not that big of a deal, honestly. Oh, yay, double jump. There is also that roguelike problem that plagues pretty much every roguelike there is. I've been playing a little bit of Enter the Gungeon on PC, and I've been playing Binding of Isaac since forever, and I've been playing a lot of roguelites recently. I prefer, well, I don't say I prefer actual roguelikes, but, I mean, I do think actual roguelikes are the better, more deeper games, but then again, those games are, like, ASCII text representations of games, so it's like, what am I complaining about when I say that this game doesn't have exactly the most rewarding combat? But anyway, it does have that roguelike problem where you end up having to deal with the idea that you might not get the items you need to successfully make it through a run. That is kind of frustrating when it happens, honestly, so that is also worth keeping in mind, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. I mean, if you're even remotely aware of what this game is, then you'll probably be aware of that problem, whether or not you can deal with it. But yeah, it does have that problem where if you don't get the right items, you stand a pretty good chance of not winning the game, which is quite unfortunate. Then again, on my first game, I did manage to get all the way to the final boss. The final boss is actually really hard, though. It's a lot harder than pretty much anything else in the game up to that point. So it's kind of a surprising difficulty jump, but yeah, it's still quite strange. Risk of Rain really isn't that bad. It's just, yeah, it's a 5-year-old or something-year-old. I'm not going to claim how old it is because I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's a pretty old roguelike, or roguelite, nonetheless, in a day and age where we have a lot more superior ones. Or at the very least, a lot more other ones to choose from. And this game doesn't seem as appealing as it did 5 years ago, originally, when I read its store description. It's just a little bit... It's just not as impressive as it was before, honestly. Trying not to hold that against it, but I mean, this is first impressions, and while this isn't exactly my first impressions, I have come to grips with the fact that the game's a lot better than I originally thought it was, but at the same time, it's still not impressing me that much after a few years. Fucking piggy bank, are you kidding? Just, it's really not that bad, I just have no taste for it. Probably won't continue playing it after this video, but it's a good port too. I mean, it runs at a pretty solid 60, even with all the effects that I was talking about earlier. Shit. Even with all the effects I was talking about earlier, flooding the screen in the final boss fight and all that, it was still holding a solid 60 as far as I could tell, so... Yeah, it's a good port, so if you're absolutely desperate for, Risk of Rain on Vita, don't know why you would be, but I mean, if you were... Yeah, more than welcome to play it now, and the multiplayer works fine, so if you've been waiting for this for whatever bloody reason... Hello, Ancient Wisp. If you've been waiting for this for whatever reason, then, yeah, it's not a bad port, not a bad game. Deal 5,000 damage in one shot, neat. Don't know how the hell I managed to do that, but I did, so... Alright. Wait, what am I doing? I've still got, like, 60 seconds I need to live through. There we go. This is basically the strategy with this guy. Just find a corner to hide in, hunker down, and beat the shit out of everything. Thankfully, all the money does come straight to me as well. I should probably explore the rest of this level, because I spent very little time looking around it. But, yeah. Fairly good port. Hate the flyers. I really should use melee bash on them, but what are you gonna do, right? Melee bash. Melee bash. Thank you. Grenade launcher. I will admit, I do like the addition of the drizzle mode because you can actually, like, play through the entire game on this. Unlockables aren't, like, locked behind the higher difficulties, and trophies aren't locked behind the higher difficulties either, or at least I think most of them are. If there's a trophy for finishing the game on hardcore mode, or whatever it was called, then, you know, that would obviously be a trophy you couldn't get on the easy difficulty. But I'm pretty sure you can get almost everything on this difficulty, so it's not like you have to be absolutely fantastic at games like this in order to actually get some fun out of this. So, yeah. Your game's perfectly fine, guys, really. It's just... It's not to my taste. Not in the slightest, but... To say that it's not a good game, or at least a competent game, would be a lie. So, I'm not going to say it's not a bad game at all, really. Because I don't think I realistically can. I hate this. Smack. Thank you, drone. Help me out here a little bit more. There we go. You die now. Thank you. I'll probably stop the video after this level just so I don't get too far into it, because I mean, I got to the very last level. I got to the very last level of the game on this difficulty on my first try, so chances are that I'm not going to be able to get to it at this point are pretty low. So, yeah. The music's pretty good, but... Oh yeah, one thing about the music is that, you want to be careful with the music, because if you have your Vita on maximum volume, it'll probably hurt your ears. Like, I was a little bit surprised by it. Some of the sound quality isn't fantastic, and I ended up, like, getting a headache putting the sound volume up a bit too high, because it just comes through a bit too compressed on the Vita's, speakers. My ears aren't, like, what's the word I'm looking for? My ears aren't great, they are pretty sensitive, but, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Just a little bit of a warning to those of you who have more sensitive ears than I do. It's also really hard to navigate these areas without a map. You can get turned around pretty easily. But anyway, that was a quick look at Risk of Rain. Not a bad game. Good port. Online works pretty well. It's just not my thing. Also, being able to suspend and save your game would be pretty good. But, you know. Minor things. If you're that desperate for saving your stuff, then you, beat the game 5 times for one of the characters. That's kind of insane. But, yeah. It's a perfectly fine game, and it all works pretty well, just not to my taste. So, this has been Blue Maxima, and I'll see you all next time.